Welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes the most fascinating industries are the ones we barely notice, the ones just sort of humming along in the background.
Right, absolutely foundational, but often overlooked.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into one of those, the global uniform fabric market. We're talking about the actual textiles, the threads that clothe millions in essential jobs worldwide.
Yeah, healthcare, industry, hospitality,
Mm.
it's everywhere.
And we're going to unpack the numbers, really dig into the scale of it, using insights from a recent cognitive market research report.
And our mission here isn't just about reading out figures. We want you, our listener, to really get a feel for how big this is and where it's heading.
Right, we'll go region by region, country by country.
Yeah, looking at the trends from 2021, projecting all the way out to 2033. So get the big picture, but also maybe some of those subtle shifts happening underneath.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The overall global market size. I mean, this isn't trivial stuff.
Not at all.
Back in 2021, this market generated, $7,631 million, so over 7.6 billion.
That's the baseline, yeah. Already substantial.
And what's fascinating here, as you said, is the trend. Where does it go from there?
Well, the projections show it climbing pretty steadily to over $9.2 billion by 2025.
Okay, a decent jump.
And then it keeps going, expanding further to nearly $13.5 billion by 2033, almost 13,500 million.
Wow. Okay, 13.5 billion. That's quite the increase over roughly a decade.
It is. And if you look at the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, it's calculated at 4.855%.
So nearly 5% growth year on year
Right.
compounded.
Exactly. It shows this really robust, steady expansion. Not flashy, maybe, but consistently growing over that whole forecast period. It's significant.
Right. Okay, so that's the global view. But here's where I think it gets really interesting, breaking it down by region. And one region just leaps out, doesn't it? Asia Pacific. It seems to be the absolute growth engine here.
No question. It's the dominant player. In 2021, their market was already huge, over $2.7 billion.
2.7 billion, right.
But look ahead to 2033, it's projected to reach over 5.16 billion, almost doubling.
Doubling. And the growth rate there.
That's the kicker. It has the highest regional CAGR, estimated at 5.5% annually, just over 5.5%.
So faster growth than the global average, driving a lot of that overall expansion we just talked about. What's behind that?
Well, let's connect the dots. If you drill down into the countries, China obviously leads in volume. Its market was around 845 million in 2021,
Okay, a big chunk.
and that's expected to grow to over 1.6 billion by 2033. A strong CAGR there too, about 5.7%.
Still very solid.
But what's maybe even more noteworthy is the pace in some other countries. Look at India.
Ah, yes. What's happening there?
India posted the region's highest TIGR, over 6.45%.
6.45%. That's really moving.
It is, growing from around 337 million in 2021 to over 712 million projected by 2033. Again, more than doubling.
So what does that signal? More manufacturing, formalization.
Exactly. It likely reflects, booming industrial base, more workers entering the formal economy, needing standardized workwear across many sectors. It's a big shift.
Makes sense. Any other standouts in APAC?
Yeah, Singapore is also noteworthy, showing a high GR of almost 5.8%. And Southeast Asia, as a collective bloc, is also showing really robust growth, over 6.1% CAGR.
Wow.
And then you have others like Japan, South Korea, Australia, Taiwan. They're all growing too, maybe not quite as fast, but still contributing significantly. It's broad-based growth within the region.
So what does this all mean then? I mean, for Asia Pacific's role in this whole market?
It cements its position, doesn't it? Not just as the biggest market today, but really as the primary driver for where this industry is headed, the innovation, the demand. A lot of it seems centered there.
Right. It's where the action is, essentially.
Pretty much.
Okay. So shifting gears from that really dynamic picture in Asia Pacific, let's look at North America.
Okay.
It's maybe not growing at quite that same explosive rate, but still a very steady, very significant piece of the puzzle.
Definitely a major player. The market value there was nearly $2 billion back in 2021, just under 1.95 billion to be precise.
Almost 2 billion.
Yeah.
And projected to reach.
Over 3.19 billion by 2033. So significant growth still.
And the KGR reflects that steady pace.
Yes, it comes in at about 4.18%.
Yes.
Solid, consistent growth.
And within North America, who's leading the charge? Is it all the U.S.?
Well, the U.S. is definitely the largest part, over $1.58 billion in 2021, projected to hit $2.55 billion by 2033.
Okay, so the vast majority.
It is. But what's interesting is, while the U.S. market size is huge, Canada actually shows a slightly stronger growth rate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Canada's TGR is higher at 4.85%, going from around 227 million to nearly 400 million.
Huh. Any thoughts on why? Different industry mix, maybe?
Could be. Different industrial expansions, maybe different regulations or workforce shifts. It's interesting nuance. Mexico also contributes with a solid CQR around 4.4%.
Right. Okay, so North America, big, steady, with some internal dynamics. Now, let's hop across the Atlantic to Europe.
Okay, Europe.
Their market revenue in 2021 was over $1.8 billion.
Just slightly behind North America at that point, yeah. Around 1.85 billion.
And the forecast takes it to over $3.1 billion by 2033?
Correct. 3.1 billion, growing at a CQR of about 4.46%. So slightly faster growth projected than North America, interestingly.
And you mentioned diverse patterns here. It's not uniform growth across the continent.
Not at all. That's what's quite compelling about Europe. You see real variety. For instance, Germany really stands out. It has the highest European KGR, predicted at over 5.1%, growing from about 382 million to nearly 700 million.
So Germany's pulling ahead within Europe. Strong industrial base showing through.
Seems likely. Could be strong manufacturing, maybe strict occupational health and safety rules driving uniform demand. The UK is also a major contributor, around 321 million in 2021, with a solid 4.7% KAGR.
Okay.
But then you look elsewhere. Russia, for example, has a much more modest growth rate, noted in the report, around 2.4%. That's one of the lowest among the major European economies listed.
Reflecting different economic realities there, I suppose.
Presumably. And then you see other variations. France around 4%, Italy just over 4%, Spain a bit higher, near 4.8%. Sweden around 4.7%. Even tiny Luxembourg is tracked, though its growth is much slower, under 2% KAGR.
So it's really a mosaic, isn't it? A mature market, but with pockets of strong growth alongside areas that are expanding more slowly.
Exactly. It paints a picture of varied economic conditions really influencing demand sector by sector, country by country.
Right. Okay, let's head south now, South America. What's the story there?
Emerging opportunities seems to be the theme. The market stood at just under $500 million in 2021. About $488 million.
Okay, smaller base.
Smaller base, yes, but expected to grow quite significantly, reaching nearly $900 million, $892 million by 2033.
And the growth rate?
It reflects that potential. The CAGR is strong, over 5.1%, 5.14% to be exact. So faster than North America, or the global average.
Interesting. Who are the key players driving that in South America?
Brazil is the largest market in pure dollar terms, starting at about $202 million in 2021, growing at around 5% CAGR.
Okay, substantial.
But again, look at the growth rate elsewhere. Argentina actually shows an even higher CAGR, around 5.6%.
Another case like Canada where a smaller market shows faster growth.
Seems so. Suggests maybe a particular surge there, perhaps related to formalizing labor or specific industry growth. Colombia, Peru, Chile, they're also contributing with KGRs between 4.5 and 5.4%. So broad-based potential in the region.
Got it. Now, the Middle East, a region often associated with rapid development. How does that translate to uniform fabrics?
You see that reflected in the numbers. The market grew from about 343 million in 2021,
Okay.
projected to reach over 622 million by 2033.
So not quite doubling, but significant expansion.
Definitely. And the CAGR is strong, over 5% again, 5.06%. It really speaks to that economic diversification, massive construction projects, growing service sectors.
Makes sense. Any particular countries leading the way?
The UAE really shines in terms of growth rate. Its CAGR is the highest in the region, around 5.8%.
Not surprising, given the investment in tourism, logistics, finance.
Exactly. Saudi Arabia is the largest contributor in total value, starting around 100 million in 2021, and it's also growing strongly at over 5.1% CAGR, driven by those huge development projects. Turkey also posts robust growth, over 5.3%. Egypt and Qatar contribute too, with solid growth rates.
Okay, so strong performance across key Middle Eastern economies. And finally, let's touch on Africa.
Right, Africa. The market size here is smaller overall, starting at around $282 million in 2021.
Okay.
But it's forecast to reach over 500 million, 7 million, roughly by 2033.
And the growth rate.
It's respectable, growing at about 4.46% CAGR.
Yeah.
Very similar to Europe's overall rate, actually.
Interesting comparison. Who are the main players within Africa?
South Africa is the largest single market, starting at about 126 million in 2021, and it shows a pretty strong CAGR of nearly 5%. Nigeria is also highlighted for strong growth, around 4.7% CAGR. These figures suggest, growing formal economies, expanding industrial sectors needing specialized workwear. It's steady progress.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground there, region by region. So let's try and pull this all together. We've looked at this industry that, as we said, kind of flies under the radar.
Yeah, most people probably don't think about it much.
Right. But it's clearly this multi-billion-dollar behemoth, and it's consistently growing pretty much everywhere, just at different speeds. What does this really tell you about, I don't know, the interconnectedness of everything? How this one niche reflects bigger economic currents?
It's fascinating when you connect it to the bigger picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asia-Pacific is, well, it's undeniably the engine for the future here.
Right. The numbers make that clear.
Led by giants like China, but also fueled by that incredible growth pace in places like India and Southeast Asia. It really signals that shift in global manufacturing, service hubs, workforce growth.
Right.
That's all happening there.
While the established markets hold steady.
Exactly. North America, Europe, they're not shrinking. They maintain these huge, steady contributions, showing consistent demand in developed economies. So this whole deep dive, it really brings up a question for you, the listener. When you see these numbers, this shift towards Asia-Pacific, the steady state elsewhere, what stands out to you? How do you see this reflecting those bigger global economic shifts? Where do you think the real momentum is?
It's a great question. And it's just amazing, isn't it, to see the sort of quiet vitality of this market?
It really is.
From that, 7.6 billion starting point to potentially doubling over the next decade or so. It just reinforces how these seemingly niche areas have immense scale, complex dynamic.
Hidden giants, like you said,
Yes.
supporting so much.
Yeah.
And maybe a final thought, something provocative for you to chew on. Think beyond the numbers we just went through. Think about the types of sectors needing these fabrics.
Healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, education.
Right. But now layer on global trends. Remote work is changing office needs. Automation is shifting manufacturing jobs. The service industry is constantly evolving. Even a gig economy might create new demands.
Interesting point.
So how might these deeper societal changes continue to shape demand for uniform fabrics in ways we haven't even seen yet? Could we see completely new types of uniforms emerge, new sectors becoming major buyers? How might that subtly change the very numbers and projections we just explored?
That's a fantastic point. It's not static. The why behind the uniform might change, too.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully this deep dive gives everyone listening a new lens. Next time you see a uniform, maybe you'll see not just the person or the job, but a little bit of this huge, dynamic global market stitched right in.
A whole economy woven into the fabric. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into a market you might not think about much, but it actually has a huge impact on how organizations look and function. We're talking about the uniform fabric industry. Yeah, it's not just clothes. It's really about the forces shaping design, safety, even sustainability. Think healthcare industry, you name it. And for this deep dive, we're leaning heavily on some fantastic research from Cognitive Market Research. Our goal here is to really unpack the key drivers, the roadblocks, and the trends that are shaping this whole area globally. Basically, giving you a shortcut to understanding what's going on. Okay, let's jump in. What's actually driving the growth here? Well, one of the biggest things, maybe the most obvious, is just the sheer number of places adopting standardized dress codes. You see it everywhere, right? Hospitals, schools, hotels, airlines, big companies. They're doing it to build their brand, look professional, maybe promote a bit of equality too. And that means they need fabrics that are, tough, durable, stuff that holds its color and is easy to look after.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just looking good. It's actually strategic. Uniforms can foster a sense of team spirit, maybe even boost productivity. It's a psychological thing, too.
That's a great point, the internal impact. Okay, so moving from the look to protection, another huge driver is safety and performance. This is critical in some fields. Think construction, mining, manufacturing, utilities too. Here, The uniform isn't about branding first, it's literally protective gear. So you need specific qualities like flame resistance or repelling chemicals. High visibility is a big one. And these aren't just nice to haves, they have to meet really strict safety rules. So this has pushed a lot of demand for like technical textiles.
Yeah.
Stuff engineered for safety in tough spots.
Yeah, and the science behind that is fascinating. We're talking complex material science. Sometimes it's the fiber itself that's flame resistant or they use special coatings. If you step back, you see how textile innovation directly impacts, well, keeping people safe, reducing accidents. It's basically saving lives, potentially.
Definitely changes how you think about a simple uniform.
Mm.
Okay, and there's a third driver we should touch on. It's the growth in education and healthcare infrastructure, especially in developing economies. As more schools and hospitals are built or updated, well, they need uniforms, lots of them. And here, the focus is often on comfort, breathability, and, again, easy washing. Think daily wear. So materials like cotton blends, polyester-rich fabrics, they're really popular because they can take a beating with frequent laundering.
And the scale of that demand is massive. It's tied directly to, global development, more access to education, better healthcare. It means more need for these practical, durable fabrics. It creates this steady base demand.
So lots pushing the market forward. But it's not all straightforward. There are definitely some challenges. Let's talk about what's holding things back, or at least making it complicated. First big one. Volatile raw material prices. This is a real headache. Things like cotton, polyester, even the dyes. Their prices can swing wildly, depends on global supply chains, the weather for cotton, energy costs, lots of factors.
Right. And the problem is many uniform contracts are won on price through tenders. So if your cotton cost suddenly jumps, but your contract price is fixed.
Yeah, it squeezes your margins instantly, makes it really tough to stay competitive and, frankly, profitable.
It really does raise questions about managing risk in this sector. How do suppliers cope with that unpredictability, especially on tight margins already? It forces them to find savings elsewhere or, well, they get into trouble.
Exactly. And it's not just material costs. Another issue is the demand cycle. It's really uneven, unlike, say, fashion, where you have somewhat predictable seasons. Uniform orders often follow institutional schedules, school year starting, government contract renewals, company budget cycles, that kind of thing.
So you get these peaks and troughs in demand, which makes it super hard for manufacturers to run their factories efficiently. How do you plan production or invest in new equipment when orders are so up and down?
Yeah, it leads to inconsistent production volumes, trouble using capacity well. It's an operational challenge for sure.
A constant juggling act, really. Hard to plan long term.
Okay, and one final restraint to cover. The growing demand for customization. Organizations don't just want standard uniforms anymore. They want unique designs, specific Pantone colors, their logo woven in or printed perfectly.
Which sounds great for branding.
Right, it enhances their identity. But from a production standpoint, it's complex. Managing lots of small, custom batches while keeping quality high. It takes extra time, more skilled labor, different resources. It can slow things down and definitely pushes up the cost per item.
Absolutely. It's that classic tension, isn't it? The customer wants something unique, bespoke almost, but the factory is geared for efficiency and scale. Finding that balance is, I think, a major focus for the industry right now.
Okay, so we've seen the drivers and the hurdles. Let's shift gears now to the really interesting stuff, the trends shaping the future. And a huge one, no surprise, is sustainability. The demand for eco-friendly and recycled fabrics is just booming.
It's gone mainstream.
Totally. It's central now for companies and the people wearing the uniforms. So we're seeing much more interest in things like organic cotton, bamboo fibers are interesting, and definitely recycled polyester, RPET.
Yeah, using recycled plastic bottles to make fabric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And choosing these materials helps organizations hit their environmental targets, show they care about ethical sourcing, and just generally reduce their impact. It's becoming part of their corporate identity.
It really is. The uniform market is actually becoming quite a visible indicator of a company's commitment to sustainability. It's not just talk, it's something tangible they're putting on their employees every day.
Well said. Okay, another big trend, advanced fabric tech. This is moving fast. We're talking fabrics that wick moisture away, have built-in antibacterial properties.
That last wash after wash.
Right. UV protection, wrinkle resistance,
Yeah.
stuff that makes the garment perform better. You see this a lot in healthcare, hospitality, sports uniforms, obviously.
The benefits are pretty clear.
Yeah, twofold, really. It makes it more comfortable for the person wearing it all day. And crucially, for institutions, it often means less intensive washing or ironing. A big deal when you manage thousands of garments.
It points towards this idea of smart textiles, doesn't it? Garments that do more than just cover you. They actively enhance comfort or hygiene, reduce workload. It's quite a shift.
Definitely. Okay, final trend for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Innovation in printing and production, specifically digital. Advances in digital textile printing mean you can get vibrant, really high-quality designs printed quickly and pretty cost-effectively now.
Yeah, direct to garment and similar tech.
Exactly. And things like on-demand dyeing and digital printing, they're kind of flipping the script on customization. What used to be a massive logistical headache, managing all those custom orders, is becoming a strategic plus.
How so?
Well, it cuts down massively on inventory waste because you only make what's ordered. Lead times get much shorter. And buyers get way more flexibility in choosing designs, even down to individual customizations.
So it brings agility, allows the market to respond much faster to specific needs. It blurs that line between mass production and totally custom work. Very powerful.
So, wrapping this all up, what does it mean for you listening in?
Well, I think it paints a picture of a really dynamic market, doesn't it? The uniform fabric industry. It's evolving fast. It's innovating constantly to meet these complex demands from all sorts of sectors worldwide. Understanding these forces, the growth drivers, the challenges, these future trends, it gives you real insight into, well, a hidden part of how the world works, how organizations operate.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that even in an industry that might seem quite traditional, there's huge pressure. Pressure to innovate from, well, everywhere: economics, environmental concerns, new materials, digital tech. It's all feeding in. Absolutely. That's our deep dive for today. It leaves you with something to think about, though. Given this mix of safety needs, the push for sustainability, and this drive for customization, how might the next generation of uniforms change more than just how we look? Could they fundamentally alter how we work, how we learn, how we interact with the world around us? Definitely something to ponder.